Life in Singapore is very different from Australia, and now that I've been here for a while, I wanted to make a video about 7 different things that really impacted me since moving here. My lifestyle is very different from living in Australia. You hear a lot about the high cost of living, with Singapore always being one of the most expensive cities in the world. That's true if you are living in a larger home, dining out at restaurants or cafes multiple times a week, have memberships to various gyms and clubs, or go out drinking after work or on the weekends.
Just wait. Shh. It's coming. No. Shh.
Convenience is a major lifestyle factor here that I love, with things like same-day courier delivery, food delivery, grocery delivery. There's a lot to love, and I feel that Australia is a little bit behind on those things. Gym and Pilates classes are also maybe double the price, so I've limited my use, but it doesn't matter because I teach Pilates myself. It's very common in Australia for shops to close around 5, 6, 7. Shops usually close around 10 or 11 at night. And many times I finish work very late, so this is super convenient for me. I would usually finish around 8 or 9 and then stop by the groceries, do my shopping, then head home. For me, a major lifestyle change has been staying indoors a lot more than if I was in Australia. It's just too hot to go outside for a walk or for a hike, and it sometimes makes me sad. Overall, a good lifestyle can be had here, but it's just a matter of affordability. Singapore weather is one of the hardest to handle, and it's notorious for hot, humid, sticky weather, something I really don't enjoy. The climate is considered tropical rainforest, staying the same all throughout the year. When it rains, it's still pretty humid. The early mornings and late evenings are usually the best times to go outside without breaking a big sweat. Strolling through the city with a hot coffee was one of my favourite things to do. Here, I'm walking for convenience to get from A to B, trying to find the most covered or air-conditioned pathway possible. A popular activity among locals is to chill at the local shopping mall and bask in the air conditioning. I found this funny at first, but now I can understand why. Overall, the weather is a big con for me. I really miss going for a walk without sweating so much. I miss going to the beach any time of the day. I miss going for hikes every week and just feeling a crisp wind sometimes. I also miss the 4 seasons back home, something I really took for granted. Experiencing summer, autumn, winter, spring. Also, I think just being able to step outside without my body heating up or walking around without sweating buckets. I think that's something I really miss about being back home. Apartment living is very common in Singapore, and I think I've grown used to it. Your space in Singapore is something you can't take for granted. I grew up in a medium-sized home back in Australia. We had a lot of space for running around, space for the pets, and we used to hold barbecues in the backyard, have family over, friends over. Having lived in both the CBD and East Coast, I've experienced the CBD apartments to be more modern, sleek, with great facilities. It's suitable for expats who have just arrived in Singapore or living the single life. East Coast to me has more of a community feel and is very popular among families. I do prefer the vibe at East Coast, as it reminds me of home, where I'm surrounded by cafes with good coffee, bakeries with fresh sourdough, and quirky boutiques in short walking distance. I've yet to find a bakery with the most scrumptious pies, and that's something I do miss back home. I do enjoy apartment living, and I'm soaking up the lifestyle at this stage, but eventually I think I want to return to a house, or as locals call it, a landed property. Singapore is a hustle city, and it has a strong entrepreneur scene. It's the financial hub of Asia, so you have a lot of people going into finance, but also law, health, medical are highly praised career choices. I've heard many stories from friends and clients about long work hours and high stress levels. It's definitely much more fast-paced compared to Australia, and from what I can observe, harder to find fulfillment. I'm very lucky to do what I love for work, so since coming to Singapore, I've managed to advance my knowledge a lot more. People who are passionate and are good at what they do will go far here. Everyone wants to further themselves in some way. Singapore's network is international and effervescent. This leads me to my next point. No matter what your hobbies or interests are, it will be embraced in Singapore. You will surely find a community here, and there's plenty of groups, meetups. I've made great friends in the Pilates community, in my stretch classes, pole dancing classes, and also at the gym. One thing I love about Singapore is the number and variety of clubs memberships here. And often when you go to a service, they will offer you a package. Sometimes, or most of the times, it's a very hard sell. Coming from Australia, this was all very new for me and I didn't like being pushed into it. But over time, I eventually got used to it and actually offer packages myself for my teaching. Singapore is extremely diverse in culture and lifestyles. So whether you're into Pilates, music, or cooking like me, or perhaps rock climbing, gaming, or gardening, there is a community for everything and everyone. You just have to look for it.
Please do not lean against the train door.
Singapore's public transport system is one of the easiest to use. The MRT takes me into town in just 15 minutes, whereas it would take 40 minutes by bus or 20 minutes by car, plus the parking time. The trains make my commute fast, and popular ride-hailing apps like Grab make it super convenient to get around. Owning a car here is very expensive. Car prices are already much higher, but then there's also the COE, Certificate of Entitlement. This gives you the right to own a vehicle. The price can vary, but can go upwards $100,000. When I first came to Singapore, I was quite sad I couldn't have the same delicious $5 coffee. Over time though, I found various cafes that do make great coffee, although it can go up to $10 for a small medium cup. It sometimes feels to me like I'm traveling in a hotel, I'm ordering room service, coffee is $8 and then there's an added $2 service charge. When I first moved to Singapore, I really missed the fresh produce back home. As most groceries are imported, things aren't cheap here. Beef, eggs, and milk can be expensive, but on the flip side, hawker centres and local food chains can be very affordable. Roast meat bowls and laksa go for $5 to $7 a serve, depending on the location. I used to go to the farmers market almost weekly. We used to go to brunches and degustations where the theme was farm to table. This is something I've slowly let go of, and I've come to really appreciate the local foods here. There's such a diverse culture here that the local foods and international foods will be done very well. Overall, there are many positives about Singapore, like the food, culture, and the history. Living here has changed my perspective, and there's still so much more for me to explore. I do feel the environmental and work stresses, so safeguarding my peace and lifestyle here is going to be very important. I look forward to my trips back to Australia, but in the meantime, I can't wait to experience even more of Singapore.